Okay, Jennifer, I'm turning it over to you. And if you have anything to share on screen, you'll be able to.
You know what? I am so Zoom and generally presentation illiterate that I didn't even prepare photos, which is sad. I do have a Facebook page where I post pictures of the pussery. And do you know my Facebook page, Anna?
Yes, I think so.
I post
And is it
kind of
called CatCetra?
sporadically. It's just called Cat Etc. spelled out for those of you who don't know. Cat, then ET, then CETERA. Well, yes, on Facebook it's all one. And I post pictures of the kitties there. And I keep thinking I should really get together a calendar. And maybe I'll do that some year. Maybe not this year, but I'll try. So the questions I got from Anna and Marek about this were, Marek wanted to know about my insider's perspective on professional cat sitting. And that seemed really specific until I started actually thinking about it and about what I was going to discuss. And now I'm not sure. I do have some things that I'm going to talk about, but Marek, was there something more specific that you were thinking of within that perspective on professional cat sitting?
Well, for example, if one of us would like to start a career, would you recommend us, or would you have any suggestions, or
Okay.
how it looks from your but it doesn't have to be anything serious, but we adjust.
Well, and I think that's hard to address because it's probably so culture specific. And one of the things that I'm going to talk about is how that culture has changed in this society. How would you go about it? Well, it's not difficult. It's not a business where you have a lot of overhead to deal with, or you need some bricks and mortar establishment. And so it's very easy to get set up. You just have to, here at least, you just get a license and some liability insurance and hang out your shingle. So, and join some professional societies and what have you. So it's very easy to get up and running. It's not very easy to build volume. I would say dogs are where the money is. People they need a lot of services for their dogs, and people need more services now for their cats than they used to. But still, a lot of people don't even realize that cat sitting is something that exists. They just have the friend or the neighbor take care of their cats, which is actually a way that I get a lot of clients after the friend or neighbor or family member doesn't do what they were supposed to do. But it takes a really long time, at least here, to build a business. When I started my business in 2004, I think cat sitting was really just emerging into wide consciousness. Now, most people still didn't have any idea about it. And so I grew very slowly. And even now, after 20 years, I'm a micro business. So it's probably something that people outside of large cities would have to do on the side for a long time. And you have to be, as with any small business, and you have to be tolerant of risk and disruption and having your life and mind eaten alive by your business, as well as by kitties. I always say to clients, if you don't hear from me for a while, it means that everything's okay, because I would be on the phone immediately if there was something wrong. My brain has just been eaten by kitties, and so just shoot me a text, but I'll let you know. So
is the difference between cat sitting and dog sitting that you talk about, is it related to the fact that simply dogs need more attention, that they need to be walked a few times a day, and so simply there is perhaps a bigger demand for services? maybe.
Yeah, much bigger demand for services. And I also think where you live probably has a big impact as well. Salt Lake City is a dog town. This is a really dog-centered place. So that feeds it as well. You know, the more people adopt it, the more people adopt it. And so cat sitting is catching up. And it's changed. The nature of the job has changed in ways that reflect how our society has changed and how our relationship with our pets has changed and how our relationship specifically with cats has changed over the years. When I started, it was mostly very casual. I mean, people's attitude toward it, you know, just go feed the cats, take the daughter to the box. And they didn't really expect much more. They didn't really expect to hear from me. I would send them a message occasionally, but most people didn't really expect that. And now I have an increasing number of clients who want me to text them every day, or even want pictures of their cats every day, which I really don't like, because yeah, I get nice portraits of cats. And to do that, I have to harass them a little bit. You know, it's not always a quality interaction for the cat when I'm getting that photograph. So I don't like to do that to them every day. It also takes a lot of time to get a good photograph. And I don't want the whole visit to be eaten up by trying to get that photograph. I had one client who had 4 cats. He wanted photographs of all 4 of them every day. And you know, cats are resistant. And cats' relationship with that has changed over the years. Cats do not like cell phones. They know what a cell phone means. They know that it means they're going to be ignored. They don't like having it pointed at them. I find that they understand that you're looking at them when you point the phone at them. Even though you're looking at the phone, they know you're looking at them. And you know, cats don't like to be looked at. They don't like you to be right in front of them looking at them. And so a lot of cats will just turn away immediately. A lot of them will walk away as soon as they see the camera at all, in a way that suggests that they're used to the camera coming out and the human being disengaged. But a lot of them are fine if the camera just comes out, but once it points at them, they don't like it and they walk away. So that's something that I've been fascinated to see evolving in cats. And it runs parallel to the evolution of this photo lust in their people, you know, who want those photos all the time.
Yeah, but this is something that only insider could tell us, that the big problem in cat sitting is taking pictures that owners require.
Yeah. Yeah. I had one client who was demanding those pictures all the time, and I said to her, there was this adorable picture of one of her cats reaching her paw toward the camera and kind of meowing with a little wrinkled nose. And oh, she loved it. And she wanted more pictures and she wanted more pictures. And I was explaining to her why I didn't want to keep taking all these pictures all the time. And I said, you know, that picture that you like so much, Tiger in that moment was upset. She was upset with me because she wanted me to be holding her and petting her. And instead I kept retreating, and she was coming toward me. I was retreating from her to get her in perspective for this photograph. And she was frustrated. You know, this is a picture of me neglecting your cat, you know, that you find so cute. So she was unmoved. She still wanted the pictures. Yeah, so a lot has changed. A lot has evolved over the years, and the photographs are part of just the whole evolution of tech. Of course, you know, when I started, I don't remember anybody having a camera around for the first probably decade almost. There was one client who had a sort of monitor on her door that told her when it opened, but didn't have a camera. And then of course the cameras came, and now I just assume that there are going to be cameras. And that has made the job much more stressful. It's made it more stressful for me, because knowing you're being watched just makes you anxious. You know, you don't know. It gives you less room for maneuver. And you have to be careful what you do. One day, a few summers ago, I was in a black car. The air conditioning had gone out. It was August. I was stuck in traffic getting to the home of a pair of clients who live a little further away than most. And by the time I got there, I was so overheated that I thought I was just about to collapse. So I went in and I knew I needed to remove clothing. So then, are there cameras around? And I texted the client and said, do you have cameras here? I am overheated and I need to remove some clothing. You shouldn't have to see that. Where should I go? And I said, oh, no, we don't have any cameras. Strip away, don't worry. So that's an issue. And the technology has not only made me more anxious, it made my job more difficult. It's made the clients more anxious. Clients didn't used to worry so much. They didn't know when I was coming. They didn't know if I was going in the middle of the night, which I sometimes did. I had a cat who was depressive and I could not see that cat during the day. So I would visit him at 1 or 2 in the morning. And then I could interact with him. But clients didn't know that. And now they do. They know when I'm coming and going. It used to be that I could adjust the length of the visit as needed if I was running behind because I had to take a cat for emergency care, which is a multi-hour event, or maybe I was just unwell or whatever, I could run a little short on visits and then, make it up the next day or whatever. So then the client didn't know and therefore didn't worry. Now the client knows and they worry, why am I leaving early? So I don't do it as often. And that means that I'm more stressed than I was because I can't make those adjustments on a day when things are not going well. Or if I do, I have to explain to the client, I'm leaving 5 minutes early or maybe even 10 minutes early because then, I'll be staying longer tomorrow or another time, whatever. And it hasn't made any difference to the quality of my care for the cats or my relationship with the cats, but it's made a difference. It didn't make a difference, to do that. It still doesn't when I do it. But the clients are so anxious. They're watching. There was one job where I was staying so long. If people will get on my lap, the kitty's on my lap, those visits go long. I love a cat on my lap. I can't move. That cat is on my lap, So I was spending a lot of time at this visit. And, sometimes upwards of an hour, also just because the routine, which I'll talk about, the routine was so elaborate and time consuming. But I wasn't charging extra for these visits because mostly I was just not getting up to go because there was a cat on my lap. And often a little dog too. They had a chihuahua who somehow I ended up taking care of as well. And one night it was late. It was a job when the dog had gone with them. It was just the cat. And it was late at night and Katsu was not feeling great. And after a relatively short time, a very short time, he went behind the couch. And I knew what that meant. It meant I wasn't going to see him again. When he went behind the couch, he was done with me. So it's like 11:30 at night. And I thought, well, I'm tired. It's been a long day. I'm just going to go. I got a message from the client when I was like 5 steps out the door saying, well, is it normal for you to leave after 14 minutes? This client had had so many hours of extra service from me. At least in the tens of hours of extra service that I had not charged him for. And also, I took my mother with me. I often take her on my visits. So that was extra attention. She would get in and sit on the couch with the little dog would get so excited when she walked through the door and would go jump in her lap and the cat would be in her lap while I was doing the first. They were getting all this extra attention. So I just was completely shocked. Not much shocks me, but that did. And I just replied that, if he knew that, Cashew had gone behind the couch, he wasn't going to come out again. I was just going to be sitting there on the couch, on my phone probably, and I said, if you're watching my comings and goings, then you know that I frequently stay here for a very long time. I don't think that I'm eating you. I actually ended up having to fire that client. He got weirder and weirder, but Now I've wandered in my mind. What was I talking about? The technology, yes. So I think technology has fed neuroses and even created neuroses. People are just so anxious. You know, the problem with needing to know every time your cat sitter goes to your house, needing to get a text every visit, needing to know because you have a camera or some other form of surveillance makes you so anxious when there is a significant change in the schedule. When maybe I've been going in the afternoon, but this day I go late in the evening, you know, there's this panic, am I not going? Am I not going? That wouldn't have been there before. And people just need more and more reassurance. Also, they become more and more controlling, some of them more micromanaging, which makes my job difficult. So the technology has really been a two-sided coin for me. It's made the job more stressful, even as it's made it in some ways really wonderful. You know, people get to see their cats when they're away. People miss their cats. They get to see them. They get pictures of them and videos, and they get to know they're okay. But for some people, it's really made them much more anxious. And part of that anxiety has manifested itself too in the number of visits per day that people want. It used to be that people who wanted more than one visit a day wanted that visit because their cat needed medication twice a day, say for a cat with hyperthyroidism, or they feed their cats a limited amount of food at set times rather than leaving food out for them all the time. There would be some very obvious reason why the cat needed to be visited, say, twice a day. Now people just want you to visit twice a day for their cats to have the company, which is fine. You know, if they love their cats, that's great. But it also seems to me to reflect the anxiety that has been growing. So they need that. They need more reassurance. Other things that have changed over the years. Oh, one thing that's changed is in my handlers. When I have a couple for clients, I've traditionally had one person in the couple who interacts with me. So I've always called them my handler. This member of the couple is my handler. So Anna is my handler. And that has changed a little bit too. It's just been starting to change, I think, in the last year or even the last 2 months. I'm getting more couples. Well, for the last few years, I've noticed that my handler, who the handlers will change, and the other member of the couple will become my handler. And now, more recently, I've noticed that both members of the couple now are interacting with me. They want me to send the text to both of them, or photos or whatever. They found that interesting. It used to be, at the beginning, it really seemed to always be the woman's job to deal with this. But with a sprinkling of couples in which the man did. But now more and more, they're both. And in the same-sex couples also, involved to be more both people wanting to text them. Routines have become more elaborate. Their routines have become more elaborate. It's no longer necessarily just toss some food in the bowl and change the water into the box. Feeding routines, in many cases, have become more elaborate. Litter systems have become more elaborate. Litter boxes have proliferated. So I'll have jobs where there are multiple litter boxes on different levels of the house, multiple feeding stations on different levels or just in different rooms. The feeding itself, in some cases, has become really elaborate. I still have this client, and she simplified it since, but her food for her cats, they did have dry food out all the time, and then they would get a little puck of raw food, a little patty of it, sort of. And so you had a system where you were moving those from the freezer to the fridge to thaw, so you had a store of them. So I would give each of them one of these little pucks of raw food, and then there would be a heaping spoonful of canned food on top of that, and then some puree from a little squeeze stick on top of that, and then some Fortiflora probiotics sprinkled on top of that. I had already for years been calling myself Jennifer Tong, cat food chef to the stars, but this really made me feel that was what I was. Now she's done away with the puck. It's just the canned food and the puree, and she's also done away with the probiotics, so that's a little faster. And people, one thing that's changed too is people used to need to be reassured about these things, you know. Well, I'm keeping my cat on the counter, and well, my cat likes to drink out of her glass. And people look nervous, and sometimes they would even say, you know, is this me? And I would say, no. And, you know, a lot of people do just this thing, and people who hire cat sitters in general tend to be people who are very indulgent with their cats, you know. So, but now people are not concerned about it. This is one way in which they've become less neurotic, because it's become, as cats have just become more popular culturally with the rise of the internet. And I think also cat sitters are communicating with more with each other about these things. You know, they don't feel embarrassed about this. The person with what I called the meat parfaits that I was making for her cat, she wasn't concerned about it. It was, well, this is what you do. You put down this puck, and then you put this food on, and then you do this and this and this. So that's something that has changed over time as our relationship with pets in general, and then also with cats, has changed. So do you have any more questions, Marek, about the professional cat sitting aspect of it?
So do you have the time to build relations with cats? That do you have a sense that they recognize you, or that you miss them, or do you have a favorite cats, for example? So this would be one question. Another question would be, apart from those taking pictures, what's the most difficult part? I would imagine giving medicines to the cats that would require, because I often had problems with giving medications to my own cats, which is certainly much easier than to the cats that they don't know you and are more defensive, perhaps.
Maybe. I can't medicate the biscuit. I don't know what I would do if I ever had to give her medication. She wouldn't allow it. You know, I would be asking if I could get her shots instead of having to give her pills. You know, can I just take her in every week for a shot? Actually, sometimes not being known is an advantage, and it's an advantage that fades quickly. It's the first time. You take them by surprise and you get the pill right down, and then after a couple of times they're on to you and it gets more difficult and they start to avoid. So it can be difficult. There certainly have been cats that I just couldn't medicate. They wouldn't let me get near them to medicate them, or they were too aggressive to medicate. But it's not usually much of a problem. I find liquid is more difficult than pills. Much of the liquid will probably end up on my face and in my eyes. Pills are much easier. I love it when the cat will eat something with the medication in it, which is really the only hope with really shy cats who won't let you get near them, or really aggressive cats. And some cats will do that. They'll eat the pill pockets that you can put the pill inside, or you can put the pill in a little bit of food or the liquid, and they'll take it. That's always a dream, yeah. So the medication, oh my goodness, I should have written it down. I know you asked about building the relationship with cats. And so it was build a relationship with, I'm sorry, my brain is a Swiss cheese. So the second one was it specifically about the medication, or were you asking something else?
Yeah, about the relationships with
yeah, that one.
With cats. If you have any favorite cats, or
I do build relationships. They do quickly come to know me, and they remember me. You know, it's always nice if I go. I don't usually see clients after the first time I meet them for the signing. A lot of my clients I never see again. I just communicate with them by text and sometimes phone. But when I do go over for a change in instructions or whatever, it's always nice to see the cat come out and be happy to see me. And that's nice for the client as well. They're reassured. I leave notes so they know that I know their cats, because the note at the end of the visit will be talking about, what the cat did and mentioning traits. And people will sometimes say, wow, you know my cat so well. So I do build relationships with them and they do with me. I miss them when I haven't seen a certain kitty for a while. My most loved, I miss them and I want to see them. So yeah, I do build relationships with them. It's harder in some ways than it used to be because of those ever more elaborate routines. I spend more and more of the visit doing the chores. I do half-hour visits. And so more of that time now in general is being eaten up by chores, which leaves me less time to just be with the cat. But
The commuting takes a lot of time,
yeah.
I imagine.
Yeah, it can, where I have multiple litter boxes and feeding stations and what have you. And people have added more tasks that they want me to do. So sometimes I get to the end of the visit and I've hardly spent any time with the cat. I mean, of course, I'm talking to the cats while I'm doing this, and I'm stopping to pet them and maybe pick them up and hold them. Sometimes I'll carry a cat around with me as I go from one path to another. But it can be hard. If I have a little extra time, which I usually don't anymore. It used to be I had, a few clients, and so I had extra time and I would just stay extra time to spend with the cat. Now, also, if the cat really seems to need that, I'll say to the client, I'm not getting to spend much time. You might want to go for a longer visit. And I have, a piece rate for the time that I have. And sometimes people will do that. That is why I like to take my mother with me as well, because then they are getting that attention and they love her as well. My sister goes sometimes and does visit for me, occasionally goes to a visit with me. They love her. I just finished this job at a house with 13 cats, and my mother went with me to all of these and would help with the chores. She would do a specific thing and then she would go sit with the cats. Well, my sister went the other night, not to help. We just said, you've got to see the cows. You've got to see all these cats. And so she went in. These cats loved her. She was catnip to the cats. They have person preferences. And so some cats like my mom better. Some cats like me better. Some cats like my sister better. But this was amazing. She walked in and the kitties were like, they just wanted her. This cat who hardly lets my mama and me pet him was on my sister physically, just like he was trying to cover her body and absorb her through his pores. He just loved her. He's pushing up into her face with his, and she's saying, I don't think you can get much closer. I think you're pretty much it. This is as close as we can get. And he's still trying to get closer to her. And the other cats are around her trying to get in. And it was just amazing. When we walked in the next day, we felt that there was some air of disappointment because she wasn't with us. So, yep, you can form relationships really quickly sometimes. And that can be important too when something goes wrong health-wise. I had a cat who belonged to a friend who became my client, named Lucas, a Norwegian forest cat, very intelligent. And we formed a good relationship, and that was important twice. The first time he got out, he was named our cat, he got out, and I had my mother come, this was years ago, to help me get him back into the house. And it was fascinating what happened. He was, cats who are indoor cats, when they get out, they get confused and overwhelmed and panicked quite often. And I wouldn't say that Lucas was panicking, but he was a little confused. He had gone as far as a couple houses down and then stopped, not quite knowing what he wanted to do next. And so the two of us were able to triangulate with him spatially to sort of almost herd him back toward the house. But he was very actively involved in that. He could see what we wanted him to do, and he did it. And he seemed to be looking to me for that direction because he didn't know quite where he was or what to do. And so we got him back into the house fairly easily without ever getting close to him. And then, excuse me, I have a frog in my throat. On another occasion, he developed a blockage in his urethra. And this, I've used this story with clients who want every other day visits, which make me nervous. Because if I had been doing every other day visits with Lucas, he would have died, and died terribly from this blockage. But I knew what was happening. I say to people when they say, oh, you can just have anyone take care of your cat, I always say, no, you have to have someone who knows cats. Whether it's a professional or not, it has to be someone who knows cats. Lucas could not urinate. And I got there for my visit, and he was acting completely normal, which is unusual with other cats who have had that happen to them. There's this note, they'll sort of wail. There's this note in their voice that I recognize, and I know that means blockage, and I'll get them to the vet. But Lucas wasn't doing that. He was acting very normal. He just was doing one odd thing. He was backing up to the wall and shivering his tail like he was going to spray, but nothing was coming out. And the first thing he did with it, it was weird that he was backing up to the wall. And he was doing it right in front of me. He had come before me to do this. And the first time he did it, the shiver of the tail was so subtle that if you didn't know cats, you wouldn't have noticed it at all, probably. And you certainly wouldn't have known what it meant. And then he started to do a little more marked things. And I realized that he was blocked and took him to the vet. He's such an intelligent cat. And we had that good relationship. So he didn't hide away, as cats often do when they're ill or injured. He came to me and demonstrated to me what the problem was, because he knew me and trusted me. And then I could get him the help he needed. And that's happened with another cat or two as well over the years. Having that relationship and that trust is really important. Lucas was certainly one of my favorite cats. What are you about to say something, Marit?
So regarding emergencies, so this is the main pattern of emergencies, these urination problems, or are there?
It isn't the only one, but it's the common one. It's something that you always watch for in male cats.
Male cat. Yeah, my tabby also had those problems. They went away with the diet for
the low magnesium diet.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, my mother has a cat also, Ginger, who needs to be on that. She had crystals years ago. Other favorite kitties. There was a kitty who just died a few months ago, too soon, only 16 and a half, named Sunshine. The client, when we signed, said the kids named her. She was an amazing kitty who was so beloved by the whole neighborhood. She was indoor, outdoor. And this client would go away for the summer back to his family in Massachusetts, and he would leave Sunshine and have me doing these half-hour visits. And at first, I was keeping her inside, but I was fretting because she was not doing well, and he had wanted her inside initially, but her well-being was deteriorating before my eyes. And so we started letting her out, but then there was a new problem because she would just disappear and I would not see her for days and days and days. And I would be so fretful. I was wandering the neighborhood looking for her, calling for her, generally not finding her. And he wasn't worried. He just said, oh, she's out. He projected onto her. I find this happens with a few of my male clients who have indoor outdoor cats. They have this idea of their cat as the badass survivalist who's out there living off the land and taking down birds, which Sunny could definitely do. She was an amazing hunter. I saw her take a bird out of the air once. But mainly, she was doing what all such cats do. She was living off the land. Yeah, she was living off all the cat food bowls that people were leaving outside for their cats. And one effect of this was that she had a lot of homes. She was a cat who people just fell in love with. I should have prepared to put photos on the screen. A pretty little orange tabby and white. And orange cats in general have great personalities. They're very laid back and gregarious typically. They're just wonderful cats. And so many people loved her. She had a sort of second home with the neighbors to either side, and first with one, then with the other. The one to the south, to the west rather, had a little setup for her on his front porch, a little bed for her, and he would give her kippers or something. And like he had some little special canned fish products that he kept for her and we gave her. The neighbors on the east side eventually had a whole setup inside for her. She spent a lot of time inside with them until they got a cat who didn't like her. And then the neighbor behind eventually had a setup for her in his garage that he used really for storage and projects, and then another little bed by his back window, and adored her. And she spent so much time there that he had to have his own supply of her food. And he became a bit of a problem because he was constantly wanting me to take food over and wanting to know where she was and blah, blah, blah. There was another couple down the street who I signed with, never actually ended up doing a job for them, but they were talking about this wonderful little cat. They thought they had a third cat. There was this wonderful cat who was coming around, and about her, she began to sound familiar. And I said, "Is this an orange tabby with white?" And I said, "Well, that's Sunshine. She lives up the street." They were shattered that she had a home and could not be their own kitty. She just won so many hearts and was such a wonderful kitty. And during those first years, when I was there for the summer, this was back when my business was still very small, I would spend an hour and a half sometimes just sitting out on the front porch if she didn't want to go inside, just sitting out there with her. Or we'd be inside and we'd cuddle in the chair. I have a photo of her kissing my face, the spin of my face. She was a wonderful kitty. There was Nimsy, who was also the cat of a friend who became a client. A number of my friends asked me various times if I would take their cats if they died before their cats did. And I said yes, right up until a couple of years ago, 2.5 years ago, a client called me crying. He had just received a bad prognosis. He was going to live, he was told, for another 3 to 5 years, and he has pretty young cats. And so he called me crying and said, I just need to know that my cats will be okay. Will you take them? And I said yes. And then I got off the phone and I processed slowly over a day or so. I thought, wait a minute, I've told a few people now that I would take their cats. I better take some inventory. My mother has 5 cats and my mother is 84. So I realized that in the worst case scenario, I could have 9 cats coming my way, and all of these people were over 70, some of them over 80, a couple of them over 90. I thought, you gotta stop telling people to take their cats. But in the meantime, Joan died and I got Mimsy. We had cancer. They both had cancer together. Joan was having Mimsy treated. And I was not fully informed. I knew that it was likely that Mimsy was going to die, but from what the vet was saying, it sounded like maybe not. Maybe the cancer could be treated. She was 14 years old. She looked much older. She came to me and she was so wonderful. I ended up having less than 2 months with her after Joan died and was completely heartbroken. She was right up my cat alley. I love catness. I love cats. Big cats. A lot of people like the dog-like cat. And I love all cats, but the dog-like cat is not my favorite cat. I like catness. And Mimsy was such a cat. She came into my home and she regarded it the way the European settlers regarded the Americas. And my cats, the way they regarded the peoples of the Americas. She was going to conquer and drive them out. This was her land now. And she had arrived. And my cats, I then had 2, were just bewildered. They were just puzzled. They didn't know what was going on with her. They weren't as aggressive and hissy as cats often are when a new cat comes around. They just didn't know what to think, but she knew what to think. She looked at them and thought, you got to go. And so I started her off in my office. I have a long, thin apartment. So she was in my office at the back of the apartment. I had sliding vinyl doors installed on my office and the entry from my little back entry to my kitchen so that I could contain her to do the thing where, you let them just smell each other for a while and hear each other, and then you gradually start letting them see each other. Well, after a few days, maybe a week, I had to start letting her see them a bit. I started letting her into the kitchen when I was there. She went immediately for their food. This was not her food. It didn't take her long to discover that the bathroom was a major center of operations for them. The litter box is there, the water bowl is there. Well, now that was her territory. She took up residence there. She started moving on in a very irredentist way. She moved into my bedroom. Oh, she liked the bed. She wanted to go for the living room. I said, no, let's wait a little while. Whiskey would come into the kitchen, like to the entrance of the kitchen when Minzy was in there, and she'd look at her. And Minzy has this face when she's concerned about something. It is the face of concern. She just looks very concerned. And she would just stand there and look at Minzy with concern, not making a noise, a sound, just standing there. And Minzy would just look at her. It was fascinating. It was mostly silent. It was like this kabuki theater playing out before me. So Minzy got more and more sick, and it was terrible to watch. She didn't understand, that she was dying. She just understood she wasn't feeling well right now, but this was not in any way interfering with her program of conquest. She remained really on it, really very alert and aware at all times, and ready to keep her territory secured. She went in before she started getting much sicker. I remember one night she went into the bedroom while I showered. I had a ritual with my cats at that time where at a certain point in the evening, I couldn't walk into my bedroom unless I was prepared to dispense treats because they would expect them. I would put out a little dish towel and they would take up their positions and I would give them their treats. Well, one night I had the towel on the bed ready for after I showered, or maybe I'd given it to them already. Anyway, they were not in the bedroom. She was. I had taken her in and put her on the foot of the bed. And I went to shower and I went back in and she was, again, I wish I'd thought to have the photo. She was on the towel and she was determined to cover the whole towel. So she was stretched out as far as she possibly could be. Her paws, the front paws were stretched out as far in front of her as they could be. Her legs behind and her tail stretched out to its full length, covering it. And I walked in and she just looked up at me like, yeah. She was wonderful. And I adored her. And she got sicker and sicker. The treatment was going well for a while. She was doing very well. And then suddenly she wasn't. And she started to go downhill, but she didn't know it. And, I am a believer in sparing your cat's suffering if you can at the end, but it is so hard to get that right. And I feel that no matter what decision you make, you always feel it was the wrong one. And with Minzy, I don't feel that. And it's almost surprising that I don't, because I didn't do with her what I've done. I waited so long with Minzy. I did that with another beloved cat, Lilith, the great love of my kitty life. I felt that I waited too long, and partly that was something going on at the vet's office. But with Minzy, worse and worse, I was taking her to the vet, and the vet thought it was time. Clearly, the people at the clinic thought it was time, but it wasn't time. I learned with her that it isn't just a matter of the physical decline. It's a matter of what's going on emotionally with the cat. In other cases, the cat was ready to die. Lilith was ready to die. She needed to go a couple of days before she did. Minzy was not ready to die. She didn't know she was dying, she didn't accept she was dying, and I couldn't do it. I had her on my lap one day. I was on the phone with the service that was going to come do this, and I just couldn't. She was still too alert, she wasn't ready. There was another day I was about to call within a day or two. She had stopped going out of the bathroom. She was just there in her bed. I was thinking one day, I was about to call, and I turned around and she was out of her bed. She was standing in the doorway to the bathroom looking at me like, "You're not going to euthanize me, are you?" I was like, "No, no, 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 no." I mean, this went on and on. And I said to the vet, I understand why you think she could go, but she is not ready. And she's just not ready emotionally. And I have to wait until she is. I have to. And the vet did see that. He said, she is an unusual cat. I do see what you mean. So I just kept doing things like getting fluids for her, doing what I could to keep her as comfortable as possible, and waiting and waiting. And it took so long. He was on that bed finally and not moving. And finally, it shifted. And I made the call and they came. And, you're always devastated. I was just so shattered by the loss of her. I called her Empress. She was my Empress because she was so imperial in her behavior and outlook. And even though I had her for less than 2 months, she was such a whole. And she's buried right outside my window, right outside the alcove I'm sitting in. And I still think of her, and she's still there, just as Lilith is on the other side of the porch. And, that hole is still there. Iski doesn't think so. Iski is happy. She was happy, but they were both happy for Mimsy to go, as they were happy for Garibaldi to go. I'm not watching the time. I'll tell this lesson quickly. Garibaldi was a cat that I got on New Year's Day 2015. He had been an indoor-outdoor cat where some friends lived, and his people had moved away. This person had been homeless. Couldn't take him. Garibaldi was working the room like no cat I have ever seen. He had had a mission, and that mission was to get a home. So I brought him home. I couldn't stand to see this wonderful cat stay out on the street and, change. His black cat. Black cats also wonderful personalities. I brought him home and he launched a campaign of terrorism that led to me finally letting him be an indoor-outdoor cat again. But at a certain point, he disappeared. He disappeared for a month once and came back, but then he disappeared for a week or two. A person who lived around the corner had been wooing him. And so it turned out he had been with that person for this week or two. He was away and he came back and he was behaving so oddly. I wondered if something had happened, like someone had given him meth or something. It was just weird how he was behaving. He came to the back door, but I let him in and he didn't even seem to know who I was. He was just indifferent to me. I had no relevance at all. The door had just opened and he walked in. That was not like him. And then he just walked around the perimeter of the apartment like he was walking his beat. He was just making sure that it was still there. Everything was still his. Well, Bisky is not an indoor-outdoor cat. And she was taken aback at this. And he started trying to push her around, trying to bully her. And Bisky is a very little cat. And I had never seen her be alpha in any way. But she started to run from him, and then she just stopped and sort of remembered that she was the cat at the house. This was her house, and she turned on him, and she literally set him back on his heels. He just hissed or growled at him. I don't really remember what exactly she did, except she just turned and just looked at him and like pushed her face forward and looked at him and probably made some sound, and he went back onto his heels in shock. And then he just turned around and left. And it was shortly after that that he officially became the other person's cat. I had been trying to find this person, and I finally did and said, I hear you have my cat, that he's been spending a lot of time with you. And I said, okay, well, if you want him to be your cat, that's fine. He's clearly chosen you, and he needs to be where he's happy. I just want to know that he's still going to be your cat if he gets sick, and that you're going to take him to the vet. You're going to take care of him, and you're not going to expect me to do it. And he said, yes, absolutely. So I transferred the chip to his name, and he became that person's cat. But Misty defended her territory. So what are the lessons I've learned? Anna asked about lessons I've learned from cats. And the first one is the one that we all learn when we come to love cats and live with them, and that's the lesson of consent. Cats are exercises in consent every day. I remember being taught how to handle cats as a small child by my mother and grandmother and aunt, and that you don't pick them up if they don't want to be picked up. You don't keep holding them if they want to be put down. You only try to pet them if they want to be petted. You try to persuade them. You don't try to order them. You coax them. Everything has to happen with their consent and on their schedule. And I think that's such an important lesson to learn in life. To respect the autonomy of the other and not try to impose your force is huge. Also put the phone down. That's another lesson. Put the phone down and be there, be in the moment. With the cats reward patience. You need to attend to them, and they reward that attention. They blossom. They blossom like flowers in the night if you give them that attention. I was so lucky to have a life before the era of cell phones, as we all were. There was a time in which you could lie with your cats. The hours I spent just watching my cats, studying them, lying with them, gazing into each other's eyes, doing the slow blinks, learning their ways. That was such a wonderful time, and I'm so grateful for it. Those are the big lessons I've learned from cats. Anything else? Any questions? Is it just the three of us?
I think right now it's just the three of us. We had, I think, 6 people, and whatever their time frame is. But and then plus, I've had messages, people saying that they regretted they couldn't be here, but they know that it's being recorded. And then also, I have like such a huge list of more questions, and I think what I'm going to do is put them on the blog. Is that okay? So that you can answer, maybe you can answer them on the blog or something, rather than, is that okay?
Well, I'll tell you, I can intend to do that.
Okay, should I just ask you them now?
Ask them, yeah.
Okay, I'm going to list all of them now, and then because they've been growing as you've been talking, the list has. But so you can pick whichever one you want to answer, and then the other ones. What's that?
Got a new sheet of paper ready.
Okay. So I had several questions. Well, the first one was, I just wanted to mention how beautiful your photos are of cats, and I can screen share very quickly, just for a moment. Is it okay if we scroll down your Facebook so that people who watch the video can see that?
Wow.
Yeah, there's Chirpy. So Jennifer, so my spinoff question for that is, I mean, your cat portraits are gorgeous. Do people pay you to do cat portraiture?
No, I've thought of trying to do that.
Do you have an Instagram?
Instagram turned on me. I haven't been able to post photos very easily.
Oh
my goodness. We're going to move as we talk, because I just saw that my battery is low, and I don't know where I put my
I'll put a link on to your Facebook page. But then my next question is, I wanted to mention about cat sitting, is that I have a friend who lives in Berlin, Germany, and she apparently there's some group there. There's like I don't know what kind of group it is or a business, but they have services where they take in cats. So the cats go and live with them to cat sit. And so anyway, that was in response to your comment of it being, I think it's a growing business and it is popular, and different places have their different ways of handling it. My friend in Berlin, she'll take different people's cats and they'll come live with her, for a week or 2 weeks or whatever. And then they pay her for that. So it's interesting how different places are embracing cat sitting and doing it in different ways. And I know that your business, what's it? Did you find it, or your phone, or your plug-in?
I'm asking my mom for hers.
Okay.
But I'm listening. I'm with you.
Because I know that you're busier and busier. So your business is definitely growing, and you have employees too, I think, don't you?
I don't. I want to have employees. My efforts to get employees have not gone well, but I'm hoping.
Then we need to. Then I need to go to Salt Lake City to help you, if so.
You need to come and join Cat Etc. Serving the pussery of Salt Lake City.
And you're so busy. It's amazing. And I consider your services essential when we go out of town, and economical. And when I learned that you actually, I'm so glad that I'm not one of your clients that you talked about, the ones that are I hope we're not too demanding. And when you said that you visit twice a day, I mean, I wasn't, well, I guess they get it anyway. I imagine that you must pay for mileage and stuff, and I hope you have all your expenses covered, because I just think about you driving from place to place to place, and that's got to be wear and tear.
I keep my coverage area small. Compared to theaters, my area is very, very small. And if I'm going further, I do add. I don't charge for mileage, I charge for travel time. Mileage specifically doesn't cover travel time. So I just charge based on how much extra time it's going to take me, because driving eats up. I don't know how people do these huge areas, because driving eats up so much time. Every minute you're in the car, you're making less money per hour, and so because you have to make a certain amount to cover your expenses, your life expenses, of course, it adds to the length of your day. And so one area in which people are becoming more specific is people want to say when I visit, even if it's just a once a day visit. And even if the cats they don't need anything in particular. There's no particular reason why I should have to visit, say, in the morning or the evening or the afternoon. The client just wants it. And that makes my day, there goes my phone. That makes my day harder and longer. If I have to go back and forth, say I have 2 visits in the same neighborhood that's across town from me and a longer drive than most, and one client wants to visit specifically in the morning, and the other wants one specifically in the evening, that makes my day a lot longer.
And then plus, with driving, I don't know if Marek is aware, and maybe it's the same situation in Warsaw, but here, and I'm sure you've noticed this, it's driving has gotten more, I mean, it's not only, it doesn't only eat up your time, it's also a liability. There's so much craziness every day. It's worse and worse. People are driving crazy. More, you're just putting your life at risk the more you're on the road. So I'm glad to hear that you have a smaller area.
I do. I'm sorry to be doing this.
No, that's okay. Can I ask another question?
Getting it to actually plug in. Yeah, the driving is the most the most stressful part of the job, or at least I always said that. It's now the most stressful, along with the surveillance.
Oh, jeepers.
Stressful things.
Okay. I think that's crazy. So I have another question, and also I wanted to mention that you leave the nicest notes. And I think that was, like, when you first started, that was such a shocker for us to find, like, this beautiful beautifully written note, not only beautifully written, beautiful handwriting, beautiful cursive, but beautiful penmanship, but also what you have to say, and it's obvious that you know the cats, and that was so wonderful. And the story about your sister, what is your sister allergic to cats? It seems that when people are allergic to cats, like I'm allergic to cats, and if I go to somebody's house, I'm a cat magnet, and they're like, that cat never comes out. And I don't know, what is it about people that are allergic to cats that we're cat magnets? Do you know?
Well, the thing that I think of is something that wouldn't apply to you, because people who don't like cats are often mobbed by cats when they go to visit with cats. And that, though, does have a cause, because they're not looking at the cats, they're not paying attention to them.
Huh.
And because cats, because they're both predator and prey, they have this issue with being looked at directly. So if you're not looking at them and your face isn't even turned toward them, everything's very oblique, that's inviting to them. When I want a cat to come to me, it depends. With some cats, I'll look at them and call them and they'll come to me. But often what I do if I want a cat to come to me is sit down at an oblique angle to the cat and not look at the cat. And then maybe the cat will come to me. It's what I've done successfully to get a cat inside, a cat that got out. And a client he came home and found the cat outside. Some maintenance people had gone in and called me in a panic. I went there and I just guided her. The cat wouldn't come to me, but I thought she'd come to her. And so I just said, don't look at her. Sit down, face this way, face away from her. Don't look at her. Now we wait. And so the cat started coming closer. And then I said, okay, when she comes over, when she gets beside you, what you're going to do is you're going to put your arm around, you're going to go in under her with your hand and slide your hand up between her front legs while you brace her against your side with your elbow. And you're going to put your other hand down over the back of her neck. You're going to hold her firmly and then get up and take her into the house. And it worked. We sat there, not looking at her, just talking, calling to her kind of gently occasionally, but otherwise ignoring her when she came.
So, and it's on that topic of, that's interesting. On that topic of getting cats indoors, if Seymour ever gets out here, how you call him back is you go out there and you say, Seymour, and do this, Seymour, and then he usually will scurry. He'll probably come here now, but he'll scurry in. It's interesting about the nape of the neck and cats. That's how they pick up kittens.
Yeah, you can do that. You can scruff up.
And well, the parents, the mother cat, would pick up from the scruff. And I once saw a video of a cat fight, and how the human stopped the cat fight was reached over and grabbed a cat by the scruff of the neck, and then the cat immediately,
they go limp.
And I realized that's a trait, that there's nerves there, and it's like it automatically shifts it to parasympathetic, relax. Or
that's what I do if a cat gets aggressive with me. I do that. I don't if I have to carry the cat a distance, because I don't want to carry it a long way like that, and then I'll go into silence.
But even just, and I found with Seymour, if he's doing something or about to run, if I just, or another cat, I think this happened with too, if I just pat him and then pin him on that area, it will immobilize them, and carrying them just, So that's interesting. Yeah.
When I'm doing the side carry, I just put the flat of my hand over, unless I need to immobilize them, so they can't get their head up to bite.
And I think that triggers, even just doing that, I think triggers. Yeah.
Calming. Yeah.
Okay, what's the difference between dog-like cats and cats with catness? What's catness?
Well, the dog-like cat is the dog. It's the cat that needs a lot of attention all the time, is always following you around, and very gregarious with everyone. And people think of cats as dog-like if they're gregarious at all, or if they're relaxed at all. There's this idea that I don't see reflected in reality, that dogs are very laid back and easygoing and cats are not, and they're very, uptight. Oh, I just thought of another thing that has changed in the couple of decades I've been doing this. Gender, all kinds of gender projections are happening with cats. I've noticed that there is a strong preference for male cats now. It started about 15 years ago or so, a little before that with a friend who wanted a pair of brothers, but it's become more and more common. And people will say, well, male cats are more laid back and gregarious, whatever. Female cats, they're more, they're not as friendly. I say, I know a lot of cats. I know hundreds of cats, and I don't see that. There are a lot of gregarious, laid-back male cats. There are a lot of gregarious, laid-back female cats. There are a lot of uptight, pissy female cats, a lot of uptight, pissy male cats. It is not a sex trait, but people think it is. They started doing it with dogs. I think they've done it with dogs for a much longer time. And it used to be, there were some people, there was the praise of the owl cat and like cat ways, but this is probably, I don't know, it's weird and it's disturbing to me. That's something I've noticed.
I have another question about cats.
Oh, but catness and dogness. Yeah.
Oh, well, you mentioned like Seymour, sometimes his urethra, he'll have that issue, and it's caused by him being allergic. And so we have his pills, but he hasn't had enough ever since we learned that he can have asthma and allergies, especially during pollen season, especially if he gets out and rolls around in the pollen.
Right.
That has been when I took him to emergency. But you mentioned that the boy cats do their little tail wiggling thing, and and that's what I was going to ask you, because Chirpy does that sometimes when she's happy. And I had another cat, a calico, who also, her name was Missy, and she would also do that little dance, and so you'd go up to her and go, dance, dance, and they'd do their little tail. But
that's different.
What's that indicate?
Well, I call it silent marking. They're emitting hormone rather than urine or other fluid. They're marking.
Does it mean they're happy? It seems that they're happy.
Yeah, when they're doing that, they're happy. They're aroused. Happiness, not sexually aroused, but they're on. And but this was different. This is why I said that you really should have someone who really knows cats taking care of your cat, because that shiver of the tail that Lucas did it would look the same to an untrained eye.
It was different. Totally, yeah.
It's just a subtle difference to it. And it was itself so subtle that it was barely noticeable.
He's lucky.
I was thinking, why are you backing up to the wall like that? And then I saw that and thought, oh. So, and then he did the one where the tail kind of jerks back and forth, like they do sometimes when they're urinating, and that's when I knew.
Yeah.
What was going on?
So that question brought up another question for you from me, is you have so much, you've got so much intimacy with cats. You're very aware, very perceptive. That could also be called empathy and maybe intuition too. A lot of, on the same wavelength. Have you ever used, maybe you are a pet psychic, or have you ever used one? Do you recommend them? Do you have any feelings or opinions about pet psychics?
I have not used a pet psychic. I've considered it at times. When Archie went missing, I considered it. I've had friends use pet psychics, and the psychics have turned out to be right. They've known things that these friends rather have insisted to me, like they didn't say anything about their cats to these people. And the person, right at the beginning of the call knew, oh, you're calling about this cat. And then knew about other cats they'd had in the past, that there was no way they could have known. One friend found a psychic who said that her cat was living nearby, and she described the house. Natasha went and walked by the house. She didn't see her cat. The cat was around, though, had not died, because on the day that Natasha's husband died, Moo, the cat was named Moo, came back. Natasha looked out the window and Moo was sitting on the fence, just sitting there, like she was keeping vigil.
Wow.
And then after a while, she left. And that was the day he died. But the psychic knew that she was in the neighborhood and said which house it was. And Natasha never ascertained whether that was actually the house. Don consulted a psychic who also said, no, he lives in the neighborhood. He lives down, the house is on the foothill above Sugar House and on this sort of little bluff. And the psychic said, no, he lives down in the neighborhood, like a street or two below. And he did. There's a couple down there who had him, but said, well, you know, he obviously doesn't want to stay around here. So he became Don's cat. But, you know, the psychic knew those things. And that psychic was the one who knew about Don's past cat, said, I'm picking up this other cat, and described a cat who had died a year or two before. So I don't discount them. There seem to have been these cases where they were for real. But I haven't used one myself. I mean, you do develop intuition. I think intuition is an extension of empathy. And I think it worked with Lucas that night he got out. We also had a cat, Rumpelteazer, who, when I was in my 20s then, I guess. And he and his brother and another sibling and their mother were being neglected by the neighbors. And they were spending a lot of time at my parents' house. And I was living there at the time. And something happened to one of the cats. One of the kittens, he disappeared. So we took the cats. They lived with us happily, but Rumpy he got out one day and he would not come back in. We didn't see him for a while, and then he would come around, but we couldn't get him to come back in, or my parents couldn't. I was at the house one evening and he came to the porch and I stood at the door. It was late at night and he did not look well. It was obvious that something had happened to him. He was very, very thin. And I just stood at the screen and he wouldn't get up onto the porch was just one of those steps. He wouldn't get up onto that. He just sat in front and we just kept looking at each other. And I talked to him, but I also just thought at him and said, won't you come in? Won't you please come in? And we probably stood there for half an hour or more, just looking at each other. And I felt like we were communicating, and he finally came in. I opened the door and he came in. And we took the vet, and yeah. So I think you have these communications sometimes that are just communications of feelings. And he knew that I loved him and I wanted to help him. So he came in. Yeah. Empathy is important in all things, and essential if you're dealing with animals. You have to really be there with them and for them and develop trust. They don't let you help them. They let you help, let you love them. What would we do without them? Without those little faces looking at us when we walk into the house, waiting to see us and to be with us, during the pandemic shutdown. I thought, what would I do if I didn't have my cats, if I were here completely alone? And cats, not to get all personal, but cats are the touch that I get in my life. I don't have a partner. American society is so cold. It's become so much more cold since I was a child. We don't touch each other. I think a lot of my anxiety, from which I suffer acutely, is from that. And so the touch of my cats is very important and so healing. When I had thyroid surgery back in 2009, it was such a terrible time. I had surgery to remove a lobe of my thyroid, and my closest friend had just died horribly.
Mm.
It was a gift to be unconscious for much of a week, not
Wow.
be in that week. But during that time, my mother and Lilith healed me. My mom, who didn't live here at that time, just came and slept on my couch and was here to take care of me. And Lilith just stayed in bed with me. She left to eat or to use her litter box, and otherwise she was in bed. And she lay across my throat sometimes, purring. She never did it before. She never did it again. She just lay across my throat, purring. And I healed fast. I heal fast anyway. My skin heals very rapidly because it's so fair. Fair skin heals very rapidly. But really, I healed very, very rapidly. My doctor was struck by how rapidly that happened. And I think it was because of that. Because of my mother and because of Lilith lying there across my throat and purring.
Who is your thyroid doctor?
Who was my thyroid doctor? I don't even remember. He was a surgeon at, well, I was diagnosed by my naturopath MD, Todd Mangum.
Oh yeah, I know Todd Mangum. Yeah. And I don't mean to take this totally off rail, but I think I had thyroid surgery in 2009 too.
Really?
Anyway, but I have another question about cats.
Okay.
Sorry.
I'm ready.
Okay. And that is, so yeah, it's, there's more, every time there's like more and more studies, it seems, that come out about how healing it is to have pets, but not only pets, but specifically cats. Something about their purring, something about like people that have cats have less heart issues. So I think it's very important to have cats. Michael is a cat man. I never considered myself a cat person until probably, 10, 20 years ago. I love cats, but they destroy furniture. Oh, yeah. They destroy furniture.
Yeah. Cats are why we can't have nice things.
Okay. I just needed to either hear that or hear like that you have a trick short of decline, because I'm not for that.
No, my cats, Archie and Bisbee, didn't claw the furniture until Garibaldi came. Garibaldi clawed the furniture and they learned.
It's learned behavior.
Back to not doing it. She has many clawing implements around, and I think these days she uses them.
Okay.
I think it's luck. Whether they claw or not, but I'm resigned. I'm always going to have a clawed up couch, and I think it's a small price to pay. Yeah.
Mark, did you have that issue too? Ruined furniture?
Yeah, maybe I don't have so many soft furnitures as the armchair that you showed us, but just a little bit, just some scratches. I remember. I'm looking now at the leg of a table that belonged to my grandparents, and yeah, the tabby was scratching. And I realized that this animal has a lifespan much shorter to us. And at the moment that he was scratching, I thought maybe it would remind me of him when we are not together anymore. And so it is, really. So, there are some things here and there in the house, but I'm not the tidiest person of them all. So I don't mind, simply. And it's as Jennifer said, it's a very small price to pay, and when you showed us this armchair, I understood immediately, and that's okay. That means you have a healthy cat that that needs some action and.
Okay, thank you. I'm so glad I get to commiserate with both of you on the cat scratching.
Nothing works.
Okay. Okay.
Maybe I never even tried to do anything with it, and I've tried those scratching paws, but it never worked with my cat. They always had their own choices of things to scratch. So like,
I kept the world's single ugliest cat castle for years because Bisky loved it so much. And she was doing a lot of her scratching on the Cecil that was wrapped around some of the posts, And she just loved to go in the hutch at the top. It was one of her best cubbies. And this thing was such an eyesore. My cousin and his wife built it. All the cat furniture is ugly, all the carpeted stuff, but this could have won awards. And it dominated the corner of this alcove for years and years and years because that was what she would scratch the most. And she loved it. I'm so glad it's gone. I wish she
Well,
could.
what's that?
I wish she would come around.
I think I heard her purring earlier. Was she nearby?
Close. No. Yeah, she might be. No, she's not. She must have gone. She's either back in her little hidey hole behind the end table by the couch, back in the most secluded corner, or she's in my office. Or she sometimes gets shut in when Esbady comes. I shut the office door the other day. Esbady doesn't do the office because right now it's used as storage for crap. And I shut the door to indicate, again, no cleaning here. And Bisky was shut in all day. She wasn't very happy. She was very eager to get out and eat and drink and have our couch cuddle. Yeah. I don't know. I wasn't going to have a cat like Bisky. I wasn't going to have a cat who was scaredy. I had just had one and it had been difficult. I said, no, I'm getting a cat that likes people. And I saw this beautiful little kitten and it was between her and another one. And I went back and forth between the shelter and the Humane Society looking at it. What a week. It was ridiculous because I too am neurotic. And then I went in and Bisky was lying on her litter. When your cat's lying on the litter, it's time to get them to the vet. And she had 1,000-yard stare going. And I thought, if someone doesn't take that kitten, she's going to die. And so I brought her home. And I love her. I adore her. I adore her. But when she's gone, again, I'm determined I'm not getting another cat like that. I want a cat I can hold. I want those heart benefits, which I think come from having the cat right there purring on your chest. I can't hold her. She will get into my lap on the couch with my legs stretched out over the couch and a blanket on top. She will sometimes come into my lap. And she will sometimes stay there for up to 10 minutes, once maybe as much as 15 minutes. She'll even doze a little bit, and then she'll go.
How long do you have her?
I have had her since November 6, 2010.
2010, so yeah, so it's 14 years. It took like 10 years for Chanusha to learn that she could climb on my laps, and I actually lost hope that she would learn it. But when she finally learned it, she would run to be faster than her sister. And when she learned how good it is, she actually lived, in the distance of my arm stretch from me to the rest of her life, but also was. I also was worried how it would be when the time would come to give her medications because she was so wild, and I simply couldn't imagine. And it turned out that after this 15 years, but she was diagnosed with hypertension and then thyroid, so she needed to get some pills. But to give her pills, but luckily there were small pieces of this medicine, and she always had a healthy appetite. And I found out that I can when I mix it with a good butter, then she would eat it. But it would need to be organic and only from one farmer. She had.
Wow. I started using filtered water when I lived in Madison for a year, and the water was so awful. I was afraid to drink it, and my cats wouldn't drink it. They wouldn't drink the water. I've never seen
You guys, I have to, sorry, I need to go, but you don't have to. I can leave you guys on. I just have to, I'm going to go to a meeting about people that are supportive of a cause that I'm passionate about. So I'm going to go and check it out, but I have to leave here in about half an hour. I have to get ready. Do you want me to turn it over to you guys and say goodbye and you guys can stay?
What time is it?
Oh, it's about 11:30.
11:30. I can stay for a little while.
Okay, I will pass it on to you. Thank you for being the cat pastor. This was
the cat pastor.
This was fabulous, and I took lots of notes, and I'm so glad it's recorded. And I know that a lot of people are going to want to watch this. And they send their regrets for not being here. But yeah, summertime is always hard to get people. It's kind of like cat herding in the summer. But we should have another. We'll have another. Have you cat pastor again? I'm gonna turn it over to you, Jennifer. Mark, thanks for sitting with us this morning. I'll see you guys later.
Bye.
Yeah.